Good morning, everyone. So I've been given the topic of IgG4 related liver disease in 2021, and there is limited literature on this. The world has not moved much in last 1 decade, so I'll tell you after compiling all the data where we are. So as we all know, IgG4 related disease is a systemic disease. So if you see here, these are the compiled data from the systemic series, and as you can see, the various organs are involved, and the things which are given in green are the most frequent. So you see the submaxillary glands, the lacrimal glands, the parotid glands commonly involved. Also, kidneys are important. Kidneys are important, 13%. When we come to the area which is the topic for today, pancreas is very common, 41%. These are all patients unselected systemic IgG4 related disease. Bile duct in around 20%, gallbladder in around 7%, liver is only 4%, but this is possibly an understatement because when we find LFT abnormalities, we often presume it is secondarily because of biliary obstruction, or because of either IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis, or because of bile duct obstruction because of autoimmune pancreatitis. Now, I have listed here the hepatopancreatobiliary manifestations of IgG4 related systemic disease. When we start from below the pancreas, it is autoimmune type 1. This is not the topic for today. When we go up into the bile ducts, the extrahepatics, as well as the intrahepatic, we have the IgG4 related systemic disease. What is often under-recognized is the gallbladder, which is IgG4 related cholecystitis. And in the liver, we have quite a few changes. One is the IgG4 hepatopathy, which is actually the liver manifestation of IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis. So this is a potpourri of terms that when the liver is involved, secondarily because of the bile duct inflammation or the obstructive changes, it is called IgG4 hepatopathy. Another related entity is IgG4 related inflammatory pseudotumor of the liver, IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis, also called IgG4 associated autoimmune hepatitis. Also another entity, when we look at all autoimmune hepatitis, there is a proportion with variable IgG4 plasma cell infiltration. So one is IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis. The second is patients with autoimmune hepatitis who have a certain proportion more than usual of IgG4 related plasma cells. And then we have IgG4 rich plasma cell hepatitis after liver transplantation. Now, since this is a systemic disease, in the next 3 slides, let us recapitulate the general pathological features of IgG4 related disease. And these pathological features are the sine qua non of this disease occurring in any organ. So the first is the storiform type fibrosis, which we have all seen. What is this? This is this whirling sort of fibrosis in which fibroblasts and myofibroblasts lay down collagen in a whirling pattern, and there is also a cellular component inside, which means that lymphocytes and plasmacytes are intermingled in this fibrous tissue, and the proportion of collagen and the cellular elements, that is the fibroblasts and the inflammatory cells, vary depending upon the age when the fibrosis is laid down. But in general, laying down of fibrosis is a sine qua non of IgG4 related liver disease, and this is an essential prerequisite in any organ. Second, we see obliterative phlebitis. Now the dense lymphoplasmacytic infiltration which surrounds the venules infiltrates the walls of the veins and gradually narrow it. So when we biopsy these patients, we can get veins at various stages of obliteration. Here in this left image, we see a near total obliteration of a vein. Sometimes the veins can be nearly completely obliterated, and at times you need a reticulin stain to define that a vein existed here. Here is a thick-walled artery, and you can also have arteritis coexisting. But obliterative phlebitis again is an important pathological feature of IgG4 related liver disease. The third important component is the cellular composition of the infiltrate.
Now if you look at this slide, it shows you the plasma cells with the perinuclear halo, lymphocytes, as well as an infiltration of eosinophils and collagen with fibroblasts. And obviously we all know that IgG4 positive cells exist in this disease. And for liver and bile ducts, if you have a surgical specimen, the cutoff is 50 cells per high power field. If you have a biopsy, it is 10 cells per high power field. And we do dual IHC staining IgG4 and IgG, and the ratio is more than 0.4 on IHC. Now, having discussed the basic pathology of all of these lesions, let us start outside of the liver with the larger bile ducts. And then gradually we will go up, we'll leave the pancreas behind. We'll begin with the larger bile ducts, define the pathology, and then take you inside the liver. So involvement of the larger bile ducts is called IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis. This is the term that is now used. Cholangiopathy is out. So here is a resected section of the bile duct. What is very characteristic is the transmural. The transmural full thickness inflammation of the IgG4 positive cells. Second, the epithelium is still intact unless you have placed a bile duct stent inside. So the lining duct epithelium is preserved, and the characteristic changes, as I have mentioned in the last point, are confined to the outer half of the bile duct, and therefore endoscopic biopsies in this disease are often non-diagnostic. And the role of biopsies here is to rule out carcinoma. Now, when we do an ERCP and we also do an IDUS, the certain characteristic changes related to pathology are found. We find these long strictures, and I shall just describe them in the next slide. What is very characteristic of a IDUS, which is an intraductal ultrasound, here we pass a high frequency probe inside the bile duct and image from within outside. So we can get a very beautiful magnified view of the bile duct wall. And what we see is that there is a uniform thickening of the bile duct wall with preserved epithelium. This white is the epithelium. And what is very characteristic of IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis is that in strictures, you obviously expect the bile duct wall to be thickened, but the bile duct wall is as thickened even in the non-structured area shown in section 2 here. So the characteristic thing of IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis is a diffuse transmural lymphoplasmacytic infiltration extending from below into the pancreas up to the hyla, and as we shall see when we go along, into the smaller bile ducts inside the liver, and hence the topic for today. Now, we cannot talk of IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis unless we discuss PSC as a differential, and this sort of explains both the diseases. This is a cartoon of PSC cholangiogram and a IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis cholangiogram. The strictures in IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis are, well, can be distal very commonly, are long and segmental because the infiltration is extending along the bile duct. So there are long areas which are sort of narrowed, causing strictures with upstream dilatation. When we talk of PSC, the cause of stricture is obliterative fibrosis. So these are small band-like strictures, 1 to 2 millimeters thick, and you have this beaded appearance because the intervening duct is also fibrosed and cannot dilate as much. So minimal dilatation, So minimal dilatation of the intervening part with thin band-like strictures. Also the diverticulae. This is also another characteristic feature of PSC not seen in IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis. So when we see these patients, a good cholangiogram is essential. Here I have tabulated in practice how we distinguish the two entities. Patients who have IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis are generally older. IgG is obviously higher, at least 1 times, more than 2 times, more than 3 times the specificity goes up. P-ANCA is a very useful underutilized tool, and it is positive in PSC, usually negative in IgG4. Other organ involvement, 90% will have a pancreatic involvement, while PSC people will have IBD. Liver biopsy we'll discuss in detail, and obviously IgG4 rich infiltrate in IgG4 related disease, sometimes 10% in PSC. Other differentials which in 2021 we should know for a cholangiopathy with strictures is follicular cholangitis. These patients also present, like IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis, they are older, present with obstructive jaundice, have dense transmural infiltration with follicle formation but no IgG4 cells. Second entity, sclerosing cholangitis with gel, granulocytic epithelial lesion, is a disease of pediatrics, first 2 decades. And the pathology is very identical to type 2 autoimmune pancreatitis, superbly responds to steroids and obviously the cancer. Before we go up into the liver, one slide on IgG4 related gallbladder disease, also called as lymphoplasmacytic sclerosing cholangitis or IgG4 related cholecystitis. Again, a very underdiagnosed entity, the same pathology here, transmural infiltration with infiltration in the mucosa and also the subserosal layer. Now, most cholecystitis will have infiltration below the mucosa, but what is characteristic is the subserosal infiltration or nodules. And gallbladder biopsy should be reviewed in these patients for diagnosis. Most of these patients will be asymptomatic, some will have pain, and it is prevalent in over 50% of patients who have IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis or autoimmune pancreatitis, and can be seen as focal wall thickening, a nodule, a polyp, or as a sclerosed thickened gallbladder. So this is again a clue to the underlying pathology affecting the bile ducts or the liver if you look at the gallbladder. Now, when we go up into the liver, the pathology extends and here the gray area starts. So here we see a expansile inflammatory lesion involving the secondary branches of the biliary tree, and the portal tracts are expanded. Now this is inside the liver, the secondary ducts are thickened, and when we image, we can see thickening of walls inside the liver of the bile ducts. The middle figure shows you the bile duct surrounded by infiltrate, and there is a characteristic stellate shaped narrowing which is described in this lesion, and the epithelium is preserved. And obviously, when you look at the portal tracts, there is a infiltration, mixed infiltration. Now, we would like to call IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis involving peripheral bile ducts and portal tract as something akin to a small duct lesion or small duct disease. Over 25% of IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis have involvement of small intrahepatic bile ducts detected on liver biopsies. And the changes we find are non-specific mild portal inflammation, mild lobular inflammation, focal cholangitis, portal sclerosis where there is minimal infiltration but the portal tracts are obliterated, canalicular cholestasis, and various stages of portal-based fibrosis. Mostly the fibrosis in these diseases are mild. We do not see storiform fibrosis inside the liver. But what is specific for small duct involvement in IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis is a IgG4 positive plasma cell infiltration seen here and portal-based fibroinflammatory nodules. So if you look at the middle finger, this is a section of the hepatic hilum. These are fibroinflammatory nodules, larger nodules at the hilum, and then expansile, edematous, infiltrative nodules, portal-based, consisting of myofibroblast, fibroblast, lymphoplasma cells, and eosinophils as you go periphery into the liver. When you look at the hilum, when these nodules become larger, they form what is called the inflammatory pseudotumors of the liver related to IgG4 related liver disease. So it is all one continuum if you look at it in this way. Let me now introduce the term of IgG4 hepatopathy, and this is different from IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis. Hepatopathy is actually a generic term referring to various histopathological changes, including infiltration by IgG4 plasma cells in livers of patients who have autoimmune type 1 pancreatitis and or sclerosing cholangitis. So this is a generic term, and IgG4 hepatopathy includes secondary changes in the liver related to large bile duct obstruction because of the sclerosing cholangitis or autoimmune pancreatitis. So obstructive changes with secondary changes seen in the liver. Second point we have discussed, a direct extension of the sclerosing cholangitis changes up into the small bile ducts. And third, you can have primary liver manifestation as a systemic manifestation of IgG4 related disease with lobular inflammation or portal inflammation. So when we talk of IgG4 hepatopathy, it's a generic term. The liver can be involved secondarily because of bile duct obstruction, It can be involved by a infiltration extending along the bile ducts, into the secondary ducts, into the portal tracts, into the very small ductules, or it can be a isolated entity when it is part of systemic IgG4 related disease. So all of this is clumped together as IgG4 hepatopathy. The histological changes in the liver are classified into 5, and these can be occurring in various combinations. One is the portal inflammation. The second is large bile duct damage. Third is portal sclerosis, when the portal tract is sclerosed but minimal inflammation. You can have lobular hepatitis with non-specific inflammation in the liver parenchyma and also cholestasis. The important point is that if you do a liver biopsy in a patient and you find these non-specific changes, for us as clinicians, it is a clue that the pancreatic or pancreatic disease in this patient can be autoimmune pancreatitis. The bile duct disease in this patient can be something else besides PSC, because you don't see onion skinning and changes of PSC, lesser fibrosis, more mixed infiltrate consisting of IgG4. So the liver biopsy changes can be a pointer to what is happening, what has led to the biopsy outside the liver, in the pancreas or in the bile duct. So I look at it in the opposite way. Coming to hepatic inflammatory pseudotumors. Now I had mentioned that in IgG4 hepatopathy or sclerosing cholangitis, you have portal-based fibroinflammatory nodules. And when we look, these are now reclassified as IgG4 related IPT, and this is probably a manifestation of intrahepatic IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis. The second category is inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. This is the new classification for inflammatory pseudotumors. The second category is a neoplastic entity with translocations in ALK and ROS genes, and you can do IHC to pick it up. And third type is fibrohistiocytic type of inflammatory pseudotumors. Third category shows as anthogranulomatous inflammation, exists in the periphery of the liver, is non-neoplastic. First entity is most common. It is a liver manifestation of IgG4 related disease, mostly occurs centrally in the hilum, and is part of the sclerosing cholangitis spectrum. If you look back, most commonly you find inflammatory pseudotumors in the lung. The largest series that we have of extra pulmonary pseudotumors is by Coffin, given in American General Surgical Pathology way back in 95, and they reported that out of 84 inflammatory extra pulmonary pseudotumors, 8% occurred in the liver. And they are very difficult to differentiate from malignant tumors. So this is what you find when you biopsy these tumors. So today we can do a percutaneous core biopsies, and you see inflammatory cell infiltration and fibrosis, mainly lymphocytes and plasma cells, IgG4 positive. The veins are obliterated, the same histology in these inflammatory pseudotumors. And also you have bile ducts inside these inflammatory pseudotumors with varying degrees of compression and inflammatory cholangitis. This is an example of how a IgG4 related pseudotumor occurs. This is an article from this year. And for the clinicians, it is important to remember that since the proportion of inflammation and fibrosis varies, the radiological appearance of these lesions can vary significantly, and there is nothing characteristic radiologically of inflammatory pseudotumors. They are exceptionally difficult to distinguish from a perihilar cholangiocarcinoma with bile duct infiltration. PET FDG also uptake varies, and the appearance remains inconsistent. So mostly they were diagnosed after a resection, but currently also on biopsy. I tried to compile all the case reports of inflammatory pseudotumors which were characterized as IgG4 related disease, and I could find 20 patients till this year, and I found that most of the patients were male with a strong male predominance of 16:4. Patients were mostly older, 60 years. Needle biopsies could diagnose over 90% of these, unlike what is written. In other organs, over half of patients have IgG4 related disease in other organs as a clue, and pancreatic involvement was seen in only 20%. 10% had concurrent malignancies. Now, moving forward to the last part of this talk, IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis. This is a separate disease from what we have just discussed till now. Look at this biopsy. it shows you moderate portal, lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate. There is significant interface activity and also lobular inflammation and also bridging necrosis seen here. So this biopsy is typical of a autoimmune hepatitis, but with the oddity that there are abundant IgG4 plasma cells. So what is this entity? Overall, this entity of IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis, defined carefully as I will just tell you the criteria, is a rare disease. Till date, only 6 patients have been carefully characterized, all from Japan. And I have got this table from the last year's paper, but we'll go through the criteria here. This is the pathology of a classical autoimmune hepatitis. This is the pathology of a IgG4 AIH. And it is the only difference in the biopsy is that there is several IgG4 plasma cells in the portal tracts. Some of the reports that I have mentioned here mention that IgG4 related disease has more intense inflammatory activity, but the number of cases is too small to draw that inference. The proposed diagnostic criteria for IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis are 4. First, the serum IgG4 concentration should be raised. This is their upper limit of normal. Increased IgG4 positive cells in the tissue more than 10 per high power field. Chronic hepatitis with zonal or bridging necrosis or a broad collapse with lobular collapse. And fourth, very important, metachronous or synchronous association of other IgG4 related diseases in the liver. Now, if a patient has all 4, that is IgG4 is high in the blood, it strains in the biopsy, and there is a lot of necrosis with broad collapsed areas with a extra hepatic IgG4 related disease, then this is definite IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis. In the absence of extra hepatic manifestations with only IgG4 positive staining and raised level, we will call it probable autoimmune hepatitis, IgG4 related, and any 2 conditions will be possible. So this is just a proposal, has still not been validated, but this is what most people are following today in academic centers to define this entity. The last entity is autoimmune hepatitis with increased IgG4 plasma cell infiltration. So many authors have looked at this entity in a separate way. Look, you take up all patients of autoimmune hepatitis, do IgG4 staining, and then look at it, this entity, from the reverse direction. And again, I have compiled these 6 studies from Japan, 2, UK 1, Dr. Amrapurkar from India, 1 study from France, and 1 pediatric study from Turkey. And what they have done is they have stained their autoimmune hepatitis slides for IgG4 with cutoff of 5 or 10 cells per high power field. And based on this criteria, they found an incidence of 35%, 3%, 11%, 25% from India, 25% from France, and 15% of the children reported from Turkey. So the gist of this slide and this tabulation is that a proportion of patients who have classical autoimmune hepatitis have IgG4 positive infiltrates in their portal tracts and in the lobular parenchyma. What does it mean? Some of these studies measured the serum IgG4 and found them to be higher, although not significantly so. But even though this entity exists, possibly the clinical significance is not very much, because there was no clinical difference in autoimmune hepatitis patients with or without IgG4 plasma cells, no increase in other organ involvement, no difference in ALT, possibly faster time to resolution and less relapse, but again this needs to be studied in a better way. So IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis is a distinct entity, but we should also be aware that certain patients who have classical autoimmune hepatitis will have a IgG4 rich infiltrate in their liver biopsies. They may respond faster to steroids, they may have less relapse, they may have higher IAH scores, but well, this remains undefined. This is an area for potential study. So I would like to summarize the lot of potpourri sort of things that I have tried to cover in this topic given to me. IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis can involve large ducts, we know that, but we should be aware that it can also involve the small ducts and the inflammation can extend inside into the liver. The differential of large duct IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis includes PSC and cholangiocarcinoma. These are the common differentials. Gallbladder involvement is very common, but is under-recognized. We should look for it. It gives you diagnostic clues. Portal inflammation seen on liver biopsies can be part of IgG4 related sclerosing cholangitis. So when you have non-specific or specific changes in the liver biopsy, it is wise to look outside of the liver into the bile duct and the pancreas. Majority of patients with IgG4 related disease have varying degrees of liver dysfunction. IgG4 hepatopathy is a term which has been introduced as a generic term, which includes primary and secondary changes in the liver. Portal-based fibroinflammatory nodules, when seen, are characteristic of IgG4 sclerosing cholangitis, and when these become large, they constitute the entity of inflammatory pseudotumor, IgG4 related. IgG4 related autoimmune hepatitis is a rare yet unvalidated entity. Whether IgG4 associated autoimmune hepatitis is a hepatic manifestation of IgG4 related disease or a subtype of classical autoimmune hepatitis is still not clear at the present time. And last point is that a subset of autoimmune hepatitis have IgG4 positive infiltration. Again, the significance of this entity is unclear. This is where we are in 2021. Thank you all.